Oh, and let me just make sure that you're all muted. And I'll just allow you to unmute later. And I'll keep your screens over here next to, let me see. I can do this. Yeah, this is better. Okay, so today I wanted to talk about Vipassana meditation. Vipassana meditation is usually referred to as like silent meditation. There are lots of like Vipassana retreats that you might have heard of. And in those retreats, they are, the one thing about Vipassana retreats is that you basically spend a lot of time in silence, right? And so it's this type of meditation, which it's even more than just a meditation. It's a way of being that's related to the lesson that we talked about last time on Sunday, which was learning how to listen. And we were talking about the importance of silence, right? The importance of learning to quiet the mind, to turn the mind receptive, which increases our ability to take in more information. It gives us the ability to connect deeper with, with whatever it is that we're experiencing. And so I decided to just, I started adding this class right after that block of the program related to the awakening of the consciousness. Before we continue to explore any more theories, I think it's important to just learn to practice a little bit more, right? Learn more techniques to actually learn how to quiet their mind, right? And so I find Vipassana meditation to be a perfect tool for us to be able to connect with that inner silence. And I'm also going to take this opportunity to talk about the different meditation phases or meditation phases that we go through, because I think most people have this concept that meditation is, it's a state of being where the mind is quiet, where you're in silence, you're retreating into your world. And that's that, right? But what most people ignore is that before we can actually reach that state of meditation, called Dhyana or Dhyana in the Sanskrit, there are a few things that we have to master before we can actually enter into that state. And then that state leads to what we call Samadhi, or ecstasy, illumination. This is, properly speaking, the state of Vipassana. In the Christian tradition, in the Christian tradition, is referred to as rapture, when the soul is taken by the spirit up to the highest parts of itself, and there's that experience of God, that personal experience of God, which most people that have reached that state explain it as just being as becoming the full embodiment of love and life in a moment where you are experiencing yourself in your body, but even beyond your body, right? And your body is just part of the oneness. It's a wonderful experience which changes everyone, because it really allows us to feel that sense of connection, right, with everything and with everyone. So yeah, most people ignore that. Before we can get to meditation, there are these different phases that one has to go through. First, we have to we know that the very least that we know of meditation is that we have to relax the body, right? And that body posture is important. That the body needs to be still, and that's why you see people meditating and they're just very still. Um, but as we'll see, you can be in a state of meditation even while you're moving, right? And this is sort of what we were talking about this week, or last week rather, that meditation is a state of being in which our consciousness is awake, right? We are in that third state of consciousness that we were discussing in last Wednesday, as opposed to the first or second states of consciousness, when we are just completely asleep, or when we're sleepwalking, as we like to call it, right? And but the first phase is related to the physical body, right? Proper physical posture. Right now, for instance, you can be in a having a good physical posture or not. You can be relaxed, or you can be tense, right? And according to yoga, the yogic tradition, this comes from the yogic tradition, right? They are referred to as the 8 limbs of yoga, and I'm missing 2 here, which I'll talk about later. Most people focus, obviously, like for practical reasons, I'm only talking about these 6 right now, but they are 8 in total. They're referred to as the 8 limbs of yoga, which are, the other 2 are related to ethics. They're called yama and niyama, and they are precepts of a social and personal and ethical nature. And so the first one, asana, is related to the body, and as we've talked about, right, the position of the body, the posture of your body, the state, the overall state of your body influences your mind, your emotions, and so forth, right? And so that's important. That's why we usually I ask everyone to just sit down in a comfortable position. You can be laying down. You can be standing too, leaning against the wall, just being very relaxed. The best posture and the easiest posture is obviously just sitting. And then the next phase is important, which is called pranayama. The word prana is the life force energy that is within the air, that is within everything, really. And yama means control. So it's related to the control of the breath, to proper breathing in a way that awakens consciousness, right? That awakens the spirit energy that is within everything. And so that's the second phase. The third phase is called Pratyahara, which is abstraction of the senses. And this is basically that part in the meditation where we begin to narrow distractions, and we begin to draw our attention away from the senses, away from the physical senses that connect us with the world. But it's not about completely detaching from the senses, but rather to be able to go inside and connect with the consciousness, okay, and not be distracted, not be dragged out all the time into thoughts and the past, the future, or just out over here and over here. And so that's an important right, that's the third phase, or the third part of meditation. And then there is obviously the fourth one, which is concentration, also referred to as Dharana. Okay, and out of all of these, I mean, they're all important, but these, or to put it in another way, I can guide you through all of these 4, and that's the role of the master. That's the role of the guide, is to help you achieve, through different techniques, achieve concentration. Once you reach concentration, your mind is focused. Your mind is now able to focus on something for a period of time that allows the consciousness to begin to take in all of the information. And the longer that you're able to maintain your attention focused on something, the more information that you can receive from that, right? You know, like right now I'm talking to you, and as I'm speaking, you're focused on what I say. If within a sentence, all of a sudden your attention goes over here, you missed one or two words, and then you don't grasp the full essence of what I'm saying, right? And so concentration allows us to focus our mind to receive information, and and so that's why you'll see, right, the different meditation practices and traditions, they focus so much on giving you exercises of concentration, whether it's counting the breath, focusing on a mantra, focusing on a part of the body for a long, you know, for a certain period of time, and so forth, right? When you're able to acquire perfect concentration, the mind then naturally begins to open up, and then you penetrate into what's properly called, or properly referred to as, the state of meditation. And this is a totally open and receptive state where you now are basically ready to receive information, right? And so as soon as you concentrate, boom, you enter into this state. And once this happens, you begin to comprehend, you begin to have insights in about whatever it is that you are studying, whatever it is that you're focusing your mind on. And that's what Samadhi is, right? It's insight, is illumination. Another more tangible word for illumination is comprehension. Whenever you comprehend something, you've gone through all of these. In a moment where, you know, you're all of a sudden you just comprehend something, and it's, you know, they use the word illumination because it really, you do feel like a light bulb goes on in your mind, right? And this is why, like, you see the cartoons, like a little light bulb goes on. That's a symbol, right? That's just an illustration of what's really happening inside of you. Light awoke, light arose, right? Or was awoken within you. And in that moment, you comprehend something, right? And so in order to have comprehension, you need to be receptive to the truth. In order to be receptive to the truth, you have to be able to concentrate your mind, right, on whatever it is that is going to, that's trying to tell you something. And for that, you need to practice attention, right, and not be distracted. And then this, in order to have energy to do all of this, you have to learn how to breathe, right? You need to be able to breathe properly, and your body needs to be relaxed as well, right? And so we're constantly going through these stages, but we like to break them down because we do have to master each one of these, because your level of meditation, your degree of penetration in meditation is directly related to how well you do all of these. And again, my job here is to help you go through these four. And once you go through these, you're pretty much on your own, right? Okay, and so so then what is Vipassana? Vipassana translates to insight or clear seeing. Okay, so it's a state of being in which we gain insight, we comprehend, right? Or we begin to see things in a clear way. And this is why silence is important, as I mentioned in the last class, because if you have a lot of things in your mind, then you cannot hear, you cannot see things clearly, right? If you have a lot of things in your mind while I'm talking to you and you're thinking about something else, you're not going to see clearly or hear clearly what I'm saying. You can't connect clearly with the moment, right? Okay, and so again, there is this necessity, right, to bring the mind to a quiet, receptive state. And I like a wonderful tip that Samuel Vero gives. He says, 2 things make the mind errant: the desires produced by the latent impressions of the sentiments, or in other words, desires emotions, right, that are produced by the different things that we experience in life, right? You might be here, for instance, right now, focusing on this, and then, I don't know, Mr. Softy with its music passes by, and now all of a sudden, I want ice cream, you know? And so there's this desire, this emotion that takes you away from the present into, whatever the ego wants you to focus on, right? So our emotions, as you've noticed, our emotions, our desires, take us away from, or take our mind away. And the second thing is, as Master Samael explains, the breath. Our breathing also takes our mind away. As you breathe, and we've talked about this, I've mentioned this, right, that there's an intimate relationship between the way that you breathe and how and your emotions and the state of your mind. When you're breathing when you're breathing very fast in a very shallow way, your thoughts begin to race. Okay, and you'll notice, right, when people are having a panic attack and they have anxiety, their mind is going a lot. And one of the exercises that they ask people to do is that to just take a moment and take slow and deep breaths, right, to like count from 1 to 10 as you breathe in slowly, hold the breath, and then exhale slowly, right? And that process of relaxing the breath, of slowing down the breath, actually begins to calm the mind down, right? And so that's why Samael says, when one is controlled, the other is controlled automatically. Of these two, we have to first control the breathing, right? And this is why, again, I'm always so, focused and guiding you guys through the breath, because it really is the control of the breath that's going to help you conquer deeper levels of meditation. Okay. Okay. And so, so Vipassana, as we said, is clear insight that will, that arises when the mind is totally in control. It's in a receptive state. In this state, we have direct perception or intuition, as we spoke about in the last class, right? That when our mind becomes receptive, we awaken we awaken the consciousness, and with that awakens intuition, which is this sort of direct perception, as opposed to knowledge derived from reasoning or argument. So when you enter into the state, information just sort of is downloaded. You simply comprehend things without the need of thinking about things so much. And you'll experience this as you go, and as you become better at meditating, you'll begin to experience that you don't need to think as much, and insights just sort of flow, ideas flow, and so forth, right? So Vipassana meditation is, as I explained in the last class, it's a type of meditation in which mindfulness or awareness of breathing and of thoughts, feelings, and actions are used to gain insight into the true nature of reality. All right. So, and this word reality, or the word reality in the Pali language is called pranya, which is the highest and purest form of wisdom, intelligence, or understanding. Okay, so when we begin to meditate, we open that higher, that superior ability to understand, to comprehend things. Master Samael says that there are, as we spoke about in lesson number 8, the 3 minds. We talked about the sensual, the intermediate, and the interior mind, right? The intermediate mind is the aspect of the mind that reasons, right? That only understand things, and it's constantly thinking. We call that the inferior aspect of the mind. their superior aspect of the mind is intuition. The superior aspect of the mind does not need to think to know, right? Which is somewhat, it seems very conflicting, or the total opposite of how we're used to perceiving reality, right? Or how we are used to using the mind. We think that through reasoning, through thought, through thinking about things is the way to truth, but that's not the case. It's actually when we learn to quiet our mind, this sort of superior aspect, which is, you know, intuition, opens up, and then we get it. We get these insights. I just have a few quotes here from some slides taken from this. This is another class that another Gnostic instructor gave in relation to all of this. And it starts with this thought, right? When the mind follows the wandering senses, then it carries away one's discrimination as the wind does a ship on the water. This is from the Bhagavad Gita. And it's a very powerful quote, because it really shows us why we need to practice Pratyahara, why we need to practice Vipassana meditation, why we need to be in control of our mind. Because when we're not in control of our mind is always being pulled away by the physical senses, right? By different sensations, by the experience of pleasure or pain, right? And it takes us away from our true self, right? You're always over here, what's this sound, and distracted with this, and this over here, rarely actually connect with yourself. And when that happens, I love that they emphasize is that when the mind is simply following the senses, the desires, it carries away our discrimination. It carries away our consciousness. And this is what leads human beings to make many mistakes. You know, like right now, for instance, right, all of this is happening because one or a few individuals allowed themselves to be allowed their mind to be carried away with certain, negative emotions, with certain egoic, selfish perceptions about reality, and it led them to make mistakes, right? And so we lose our consciousness, because when the mind is wandering, we lose connection with ourselves, with our true essence, right? Okay. Let me see. I'm not going to go through all of these slides because they're a bunch. But here's just a few quotes about the importance of concentration, right? That we need to, through the practice of concentration, we begin to control our mind. We gain control of our mind again, because right now we're controlled by the mind. Okay. Samael says, without wise concentration of thought, the experience of truth is impossible. Concentration is the first and foremost thing a sadhaka or aspirant should acquire in the spiritual path. This is a quote by Swami Sivananda, which was a yogi from India. Okay. And these are the steps of yoga that I was referring to in the beginning. As you can see, there are 8, right? And the first 2 are related to yama and niyama, which are ethical precepts, which are self-restraint and precepts of a social nature. Basically, these are ways of being that we're invited to practice on a daily basis. Things like, being ethical, being a good person, helping others, being altruistic, almsgiving, studying the sacred scriptures, doing your spiritual practices. They even go into things like, taking care of the body, like being like showering, making sure that you're actually clean, that your room is clean, and so forth, right? Because all of these things will actually prepare you for this, right? Practicing ethics will actually prepare you for these states, and the more ethical that you are, the easier that meditation will be. And it's a very interesting concept, because I don't think many people relate meditation with our day-to-day activities. But if you think about it, every state of being is a state in which you're working with energy, right? And so one of these are separated into I believe there are 4 of each of these. I have the list somewhere. But one of them is practice contentment, because when you allow yourself to be angry and annoyed at every single little thing, and you're complaining all the time, what's happening is you're losing energy, right? You're wasting energy that you could be using to concentrate, right? To study and to meditate. And so we'll talk later about all of these things, more in depth, but you understand why every spiritual tradition is always, or every religious tradition is always, again, in the business of telling you how to behave. It's not just because they want to control you, even though religion has sort of become a system of control, but because they've lost the true essence of it. But it doesn't mean that their teachings are wrong. It's just the way that those in charge are interpreting those teachings. And so what's happening is that when you're practicing these so-called virtues, you're actually using your energies properly. You're not wasting your energies, and they're helping your mind to be able to be more focused and be able to comprehend information. Dharana, which is meditation, and Dharana, which is concentration, and Dhyana, which is meditation, come automatically if Pratyahara is perfect, right? So Pratyahara, again, is that third phase, which is when we eliminate all distractions, when we bring the mind into the consciousness, and we don't allow the mind to be distracted. Okay. Okay, so this is what Pratyahara means, literally withdraw, draw back, retreat, right? So we take the mind, and we retreat them from all of the senses, and we go inside. Okay. And I just want to end with this quote. Shutting out all external sense objects, keeping the eyes and vision concentrated between the 2 eyebrows, suspending the inward and outward breaths within the nostrils, and thus controlling the mind, senses, and intelligence. The transcendentalist, aiming at liberation, becomes free from desire, fear, and anger. One who is always in this state is certainly liberated. All right, so that's the whole purpose of Pratyahara, is to help us sort of liberate ourselves from all of these things that keep our mind distracted and outside of ourselves, right? They say in the Bhagavad Gita and in the Vedic tradition, they say that there are three doors that lead to hell, 3 doors that lead to our to unconscious behavior, and those are desire, fear, and anger, right? And desire here should be transmuted into love. Fear should be transmuted into knowledge, right? Into awareness. Because fear is the result of ignorance, right? We fear what we don't know, right? When you don't know what's going to happen, you're uneasy about it, right? It gives us a sense of insecurity. But when you know, when you awaken consciousness and through intuition, you begin to know that, okay, everything is going to be fine. Somehow you know that no matter what, you're going to be fine. Fear begins to dissolve or be transmuted into consciousness, into knowledge. And anger is transmuted into peace, into serenity, into joy, and so forth. Okay, and those three emotions that I just mentioned are emotions that make you expand, right? That they're expansive in nature. They make you feel expansive and more open, more receptive, and so forth. Okay. All right. Yeah. So that's that. So then we have to learn to shut out external sense objects by keeping the eyes and visions concentrated between the two eyebrows. And this is one practice that we can do, where we can just focus our attention here as we breathe in and out, right? Just to keep the mind focused on something, and so that the mind is not all over the place. We can use the eyebrows, we can use a mantra, we can bring our awareness to our heart. I actually love to bring my awareness to the heart, and then expand my awareness from the heart to the rest of the body. The mind is suspending, right? We're suspending the mind inward. Suspending the inward and outward breaths within the nostrils, right? Just focusing on the experience of the breath, and thus controlling the mind, right? And this is what leads to liberation. And so this is why in the Vipassana tradition, right, we are taught to just sit there in silence and just focus on the breath, focus on a part of the body, right? And just sit there long enough until you begin to experience revelations, if you do that long enough without any desire, right? That's sort of the key here. Like you want to sit there without the desire to become enlightened, without the desire to actually get an answer, because that desire is already stimulating the mind to go and look for it, right? And so like I mentioned I forgot what class it was, but like all we have to learn to do is to simply do nothing, to just simply sit there in silence, to draw our attention inside. And that little by little begins to open the mind and brings us to the experience of the truth. Okay, so that's what I have for you guys. We're going to do an exercise in which we're going to go through all of those different phases. Do you guys have any questions or comments?